Welcome to the Story Howler. I'm your host, the Night Wolf, and today we're going to be discussing our second movie in the Hasbro Cinematic Universe. This one called Transformers: Cybertron's Civil War. And our movie will be starting out with a stylized animated explosion. And as that explosion begins to clear, we will see an energy cloud begin to head towards a planetoid where it'll absorb inside of it. That planet will slowly start to change from its rocky gray and brown to a more silver color and then finally up to a golden color. And a voiceover will start speaking and the animation will follow along with what the voice is saying. The planet Cybertron was born upon the remains of a god, and slowly the creatures there began to evolve into a cybernetic life form. These forms would slowly begin to develop an intelligence, their lives brought about by the spark from the creation matrix. And a mostly peaceful people, the Cybertronians lived, until one day they were visited by another race known as the Quintessons. The Quintessons quickly took over the planet, enslaving those that lived there. However, some grabbed the creation matrix before the Quintessons could find it and hid it deep, deep inside. While the Quintessons had the more advanced space-faring technology, the Cybertronians had the more advanced robotics technology, and so the Quintessons would ship Cybertronians off-world to work as slave labor. However, they soon realized they could not increase the population of the Cybertronians because although they could manufacture the bodies the Cybertronians used, they could not recreate that spark of life that allowed them to work autonomously. The Quintessons began to experiment, and though they learned they could cut a small portion of a spark away and have the main spark still heal, that small portion would shrivel and die. They attempted to combine it with other portions of sparks, but there was no use. It failed every time. That is, until one mad scientist on the Quintesson side decided to introduce an organic virus into the sparks. And when this happened, the sparks ended up with a positive or a negative charge. And if you cut a small piece from a positive charged spark and a negative charged spark, you could combine them together to create a new spark. And thus the planet was seeded with this virus. And the Cybertronians' sparks began to evolve. And those bots with the positively charged spark began to take on bulkier forms, and those with the negatively charged sparks began to take on more streamlined forms. But that was not the only change that occurred. In attempts to thwart the Quintessons and earn their freedom, the Cybertronians learned how to modify their bodies even further to transform into the vehicles and equipment the Quintessons used every day. And thus they were able to disguise themselves as they fought the war against the Quintessons, until eventually the Quintessons were forced to leave the planet once and for all. The Cybertronians continue to evolve, those of the bulkier forms slowly taking on a more masculine form, and those with the more streamlined forms taking on a more feminine form, thanks to the organic virus, which brought to it the more known appearances of the masculine and feminine in the universe. This becoming even more prevalent when the ability to create protoforms as bodies evolved. Another split in the Cybertronian society occurred as they developed both civilian and military bots. The military bots going under the name Decepticons, whereupon the civilian bots went under the name Autobot. And thus a council was formed, those of different sections of Cybertronian world, those of both Decepticon and Autobot, to rule over the planet. The creation matrix brought out of hiding, but with the changes made by the Quintessons, it was considered an obsolete way of reproduction, and thus it was nothing more than a piece to be displayed upon the planet. We then begin to pan away from the planet, and slowly as we back away, we will see the planet go from that stylized animated opening to the more realistic form of the movie itself. And as we get further and further back, we see this golden planet of Cybertron. But there are a couple of areas that have gone gray and dark. And we once more zoom in. In the distance, we see a group of Tetrajets flying in the distance with a couple of Cybertronians in their bot modes flying with them. Further down we go until we reach the ground level where we see 3 Cybertronians at work. 2 of them loading up a third one with energon cubes. The red and blue bot begins to speak, saying, "I really wish I could fly like the Decepticons can." The orange one, in its vehicle mode, replying to him, "Well, Pax, old buddy, you could always go ahead and get yourself reformatted for the military. The ability to fly like that is a military perk." And the third bot, a female in kind of a pinkish color, replies, "Don't give him any ideas, Dion. Pax and I have put in for a spark merging." Orion Pax now speaks and says to Ariel, "Do not worry. I don't have any intention of being reformatted. Considering the chances of losing your memory when you're brought back to protoform, it just seems a little too scary to me." To which Dion begins to hum, and the two look at him. "What's this about?" Ariel asks. Dion sighs and says, "I've actually put in to be included on the crew of the new Ark, in which case I will be formatted back to protoform and put into a stasis pod for the trip." And thus a discussion begins that allows us to learn that every 1,000 cycles or so, the Cybertronian Council decides to send out another colony ship to explore the world, taking with them a space bridge, in the hopes that once they find their new world, they will be able to set up the space bridge and connect back to Cybertron. And though we don't know how many of these colony ships have gone, we will learn that the most recent ship has been named the Ark. And next scene, we see a handful of bots, 3 of them, standing before another group in a council subcommittee. One of the members on the committee table being that of Alpha Trion. Those in front of him being Megatron, Soundwave, and an unknown seeker. And Megatron speaks. "I have gathered some evidence that the Quintessons are planning another invasion attempt. And I believe we need to stop manufacturing the civilian population and turn more attention to our military, as our military has decreased in numbers greatly over megacycles." The head bot on this committee looks at Megatron and says, "We have gone over your evidence, and it seems a bit lackluster to us. Gather more if you wish to try to find it, but as right now, we cannot justify adding additional military." And thus Megatron and his lieutenants are dismissed from the subcommittee chambers and leave. "Those on the council do not take us seriously," the unknown seeker says, and Megatron looks at him. "That is correct. Those fools do not understand the problems that we are having. We must increase our military. If the Quintessons attack now, we will not be able to defend this planet as we need to be able to." Next up, we see the exterior of the McAdams bar on Cybertron. And as we go inside, we see Alpha Trion sitting at a table with Megatron as they discuss what has been happening. And Alpha Trion tells Megatron, "Continue to gather your evidence, Megatron, and bring it to the council. I am sure that we will be able to get them to see reason. I agree with you that our military is not strong enough to counter an invasion by the Quintessons again." "I don't think we have time for this, Alpha Trion. We cannot continue to falter like this." Just then, we see 3 bots enter the bar. Ariel, Orion Pax, and a third one with a similar build to Orion Pax, this being Dion. And as they go to the bar to order their liquidized energon to drink, Orion Pax looks over and sees Megatron, and quickly makes his way there. "Sir, I would like to thank you for your military service. I am proud to have a chance to meet with you." Megatron takes a look at the young Pax and smiles. Alpha Trion turns and says, Orion Pax, this is Megatron. Megatron, this is Orion Pax. He has helped me out in a number of occasions and works as a file clerk for the Energon storage unit in this area. It is a pleasure to meet you, Orion Pax. And you don't need to bow your head like that. I am just another bot like everyone else. Megatron turns to look at Alpha Trion and says, I kind of like this kid. Orion Pax smiles and joins them for a bit in conversation before returning to his friends. In the next scene, we once again see Megatron in front of, this time, a larger group of the counselors. Alpha Trion is no longer among them. And Megatron begins to state, our planet is now beginning to lose its energy resources, and you want to waste time sending out more colony ships? Virtually none of them have reported back to us. In fact, I believe only one has, and it has not been able to send us any energon to replenish our own here. We need to take a stand. The Quintesson threat is becoming even greater now, and if they come back, they will conquer us easily. We need to stop the spark mergings, as they are a wasteful form of reproduction, and we will need to take the creation matrix itself and begin to use that to create our military. And we will need to start finding ways to create new energy on this world. The Council will once again reject Megatron's ideas, and Megatron leaves, taking with him Soundwave and again the Unknown Seeker. And as they leave, Megatron looks at his two lieutenants and says, it is time. Those fools will not see reason, and thus we will have to take matters into our own hands. We will now be treated to a montage of different battles across the planet in different areas, and even of counselors being destroyed. However, we will also be treated to images of life going on in other areas. Once more, we will focus on Orion Pax, Ariel, and Dion as they continue to do their job. At one point, we'll even see the trio speaking to a group of 5 random Cybertronians who we never quite get a good look at, but look remarkably different from those of our current grouping. Like, they're different. We will see our trio of bots joined with Chromia, Firestar, and Greenlight as they all work together until their work is again interrupted with the arrival of Megatron, Soundwave, our Unknown Seeker, Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. And Orion Pax will look over at Megatron in surprise and say, Megatron, what are you doing here? And Megatron will look at Orion Pax and just simply say, Pax, I am in need of your energon reserves in this facility, and I will be taking them. Please get out of the way. Orion Pax will reply something to the effect of, you can't do that, Megatron. We need this energy here. You don't understand, Pax. This planet is dying, and the Quintessons are preparing to attack. We need that energy in order to survive and build our military. The Unknown Seeker will turn and say, enough of this, and blast Orion Pax, and blast Ariel, and blast Dion. Screams will be heard from the other 3 fembots. Megatron will turn to the Seeker and say, you fool, we do not want to kill civilians unnecessarily, and he will take his blaster and blow the head off of the Seeker. Orion Pax, I wish things could have been different, he will say, before he and his lieutenants raid the warehouse and take the Energon. We will then be treated to the sign of those 5 bots from previously seen. Again, we won't be able to make out their features very well, but they will show up and help the fembots carry the injured companions to a mechanic to help them. And when the door opens, they are introduced to A3, the name that Alpha Trion uses when he is in the city like this. And they will bring those bots in, and Alpha Trion will tell them, I will do my best to try to save the lives of these young bots. Please give me time. We will once again now see Megatron in the Cybertronian Senate, where many of the bots have been left as smoldering husks. Soundwave set to search the records. Megatron finding the creation matrix sitting upon its pedestal. And when he opens it up, he lets out a bellow, "This is a fake! Where is the real Matrix?" And he will smash it to the ground. And Soundwave will return and say, "Lord Megatron, there are more issues here than that. From what I have discovered, it would appear that many of those on the council have been in touch with the Quintessons. In fact, the reduction in military seems to be a plot between the council and the Quintessons." "What?" Megatron will bellow also, even angrier than before. "You're telling me our own council has been selling us out to our worst enemies?" "It would appear that way, Lord Megatron. Those council members who have sided with the Quintessons plan to be the handlers for us regular Cybertronians, as we are once more enslaved to the Quintessons." Megatron will look at Soundwave in anger. "It's more important than ever before that we get our hands on the creation matrix. We must find a way to stop the Quintessons and save this planet." And now we will enter Alpha Trion's workshop, where Ariel and Dion will be seen on life support systems, and Orion Pax upon a table, where we can see many changes have already been made on his body. And Alpha Trion will stand above him and speak. "We need a leader to go up against Megatron and his Decepticons. The Autobots have not been those of war for a very long time, and we need a warrior. We need a leader. And in my possession, I have the Creation Matrix, which many do not remember that its full name is actually the Creation Matrix of Leadership. And those in the past who have been joined with it have left their memories, their skills, their abilities inside of it. And once it becomes part of you, you will be able to access many of those. And you will become the leader the Autobots need in order to save this planet from the Decepticon threat." Outside of Alpha Trion's workshop, our group of fembots will be there, as well as those strange, shadowy Cybertronians that we have yet to identify. And Alpha Trion will come out the door and he will speak. "I have done my best to save Orion Pax, but he is now taking on a new form, and he will have to be the leader that the Autobots will need in order to fight against Megatron. And we will see this bot come out from behind Alpha Trion, and we will hear a voice whisper from one of these bots who will just say, 'Optimus Prime?' Before Alpha Trion himself speaks up and says, 'I would like to introduce to you the new leader of the Autobots, Optimus Prime.' We will now see a montage of battles between the Autobots and the Decepticons on the planet Cybertron. Optimus Prime against Megatron on occasion. Ultra Magnus fighting. Elita 1 fighting. Our fembots from before. And all sorts of different Autobots. Some we will recognize, some we won't. And eventually we will see Bumblebee and Wheeljack return to base with the smallest amount of energon anyone could ever see. And Optimus Prime will look at what they've returned with, and he will sigh, since we can't see him frown under the mask. "I think it is time for us to use our last resort. How is the repairs on the Ark going?" he will ask. Ironhide will reply, "It's going fine, Prime. The ship should be ready to launch soon." And Bumblebee will reply, "What do you mean, Prime? We're going to be leaving Cybertron?" "Yes, Bumblebee, we will be leaving Cybertron. The Ark is equipped with a space bridge, and it was programmed to find a destination that was high in energon. And we will take the Ark and we will go there, and we will set up our space bridge, and we will find the energy we need in order to continue our battle with Megatron and reclaim this planet." The next scene we will see, the Autobots are fighting against the Decepticons as they head to the launch pad of the Ark, where they will enter and get to the controls of the ship and blast off. Megatron will be informed that the Autobots have stolen the Ark. He will look to Soundwave. "Is the Nemesis ready?" "Yes, Lord Megatron, the Nemesis is prepared for flight." "And did you move the space bridge from the Ark into the Nemesis?" "Yes, Lord Megatron. The space bridge has been added to the Nemesis." "Good. Let us chase after these traitors to Cybertron." And with that, the Decepticons will fly after in the Nemesis. We will see a massive battle in space between these two ships. the Nemesis more than outgunning the Ark, but the Ark still has its own weaponry. But eventually, the Nemesis will crash against the Ark, and the Decepticons will enter through the hole that is created, where once more the battle will be one-on-one, until they are pulled into a gravity well of some sort, and suddenly explosions abound and the two ships begin to lose control as they enter the atmosphere of a planet. And we will see some bots sucked out, as well as some of the stasis pods. Some will float around in space and others will head towards the planet, and we will pull back to where we will see this giant ball of a meteor going through Earth's atmosphere, one breaking apart, one large chunk going one way, the other large chunk going another way, and we will see from our vantage point that it is the Ark and the Nemesis. But we will also see a single seeker crashing down in an Arctic wasteland, where we will also see a figure overlooking that. And the ships will crash, the Ark in a mountainside and the Nemesis into the ocean. And with that, the credits will start. During the credits, we will be treated to a scene, and it will be that of shadowy figures with bulbous heads speaking. It would seem that our plan of divide and conquer has been successful, even though we had only considered it to have a 65% chance of success, plus or minus 4. Another voice, as one of these bulbous heads turn about, showing another face. Yes, when we added that virus to the unit designated Megatron, our chances of success did increase by 20%, plus or minus 2. The third form will turn and speak. I am concerned with those unknown bots that came out of nowhere. They were not registered with the information we were given by the Council. Those of designation Optimus Prime, designation Ultra Magnus, and designation Elita 1. Those do not matter. They are off the world now, are they not? Or at least 2 of them are. We don't need to worry about them any longer. Not only that, but the leadership of both the Decepticons and the Autobots have left. With them gone, that increases the chance of us getting back the planet they stole from us up to 90% plus or minus 5. And then the credits will roll a little bit longer without interference until we pop up with another scene where we once more will see the Ark and the Nemesis in flames as they go through the atmosphere, and we will follow another pod out of it, as we did with the Seeker. This stasis pod will land into a jungle-ish area, burning the area around it. We will see in high speed the plants growing around, light, dark, until it's covered. Until once again, we will see an explosion that will unearth the pod, and then some lights will start to blink on it. And we will finish off the credits after that. However, just because we like to mess with people, we will add an end credit scene, and we will be back to Alpha Trion's workshop, where we will see once more where Alpha Trion put the Matrix inside the body of Orion Pax. And as he opens it up and puts it in and surrounds the spark with it and activates it, we will see that an energy wave goes out across the universe. And far, far away, we will look inside of a set of monitors that will show the scene of the Matrix being activated, and we will hear a primal scream come from that. And that will end the movie there. So originally, I didn't want to do anything with the gender part of Transformers, figuring, who cares? Like, every story that somebody comes up with for why there's male and female Transformers has been pretty stupid. But as I thought about it more, and I realized that production of Cybertronians would actually be a key part of the story, I decided to come up with my own reason for why there are male and female bots, and the simplest reason being reproduction. So we got that there. I know that there's probably going to be a lot of people pissed off at me for coming up with this, but, it's better than what IDW did. And, if you remember, if you've ever seen it in the 80s, there's a comic I've done, I believe it was in the UK, where it was a group of feminists complaining to Optimus Prime about all the Cybertronians being, all the Transformers being male. And I think Prime's response was, we are robots, we have no gender. And they reply back something to the effect of, "You all look like you're male, you all sound like you're male, why are there no women?" And so they create RC, and they show RC off to the feminists who go and look at RC and say, "Why is she pink?" And that was kind of like the end of it. Along with all of this, I want to note that, for me, the lifespans that they've given the Cybertronians have been absolutely ridiculous. And I know it goes all the way back to the Generation 1 cartoon, where you have Shockwave still alive 4 million years after the Ark crashes, and Megatron awakens and contacts Cybertron. And I know there was a book I read where Optimus Prime had been Orion Pax, I think, for 4.5 million Earth years before he became Optimus Prime. And if you start looking at lifespans that are that long, you start to realize that to get from Optimus Prime to Optimus Primal, you're probably looking at like 1 billion freaking years. And that's too long. So the way I figure it, maybe the average Cybertronian lifespan is somewhere between 15,000 and 20,000 years, give or take, unless you're in stasis for a while. So I want to make sure to cut down the ridiculously long lifespan that they have with this reboot. There's also been so much convoluted lore created between both IDW and the Michael Bay movies that I want to simplify that as well. Get rid of the whole 13 Primes thing. Basically, removing all the more spiritual stuff that has developed in the Transformers. I'm also going to put out there that Unicron should be an unknown factor. This is a giant planet that eats other planets. This is not something that a lot of people are going to know about because he's going to be clearing out parts of the universe. And although it could be said that maybe some observers might notice planets disappearing, maybe might even notice a giant planet somewhere, it's not going to be common knowledge anywhere. And that's also been a problem with Transformers lately. That's why when I did the Cobra Commander one, I had the Cobra Law mention that they escaped through a wormhole from the Devourer of Worlds, Unicron. And Unicron is somewhere across the galaxy, just doing what he does. It isn't until we see the Matrix activated in Optimus Prime, very similar to what happened in the Transformers, the movie back from the 80s when Hot Rod touched the Matrix. But in this case, it'll be Optimus Prime, and that'll have Unicron start heading towards that way. However long it takes him to get there. Who knows? But anyway, that kind of helps us set up some future movies as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sure there's going to be some people that are pissed about what I've come up with here, but let me know what you think. Peace and love, and I hope I see you next time.